All right, we are out here at OSW for a private day with the vet. We felt like we had to dust the cobwebs off this thing and get some seat time in it, do some laps, make sure it's still good and make sure I still know how to drive it. The last time we drove it was when we took the street racing channel guys out, and that I was more just trying to show them ride-alongs than like playing with setup and stuff on the car. So we got a few comps coming up and the car has been sitting and hasn't done a comp since last year. So we need to get this thing dialed in and make sure it's good to go before the comps are here. We don't want to be finding this stuff out at the comp. So the car is dusty. Gives you an idea of how long it's been. What's the temps at? 60. Okay. Got them Larry Hoovers. Josue's here. Raldo's here. The gang's all here. We're gonna warm up on the skid pad just to make sure the car is good and I remember how to drive it, and then we're gonna do some oval laps. So yeah, let's see what the old vette can do here. I had no idea what the layout was on the skid pad, so I was just dodging in between cones, kind of making up my own layout until I could figure out what they had come up with. It wasn't like any other layout I'd seen. Josue took the time to watch a few cars go and get an understanding of what the layout was supposed to be. So it's time to go back out and try to do the actual layout, but my dash decided to stop working. And this is a problem we've had before that I completely forgot about, and that's why we test. Well, we have some problems. This is a little gremlin I forgot about, but it's still here. The dash randomly doesn't work. Let's see if it turns on. No. Then it'll randomly come on. And then earlier, while I was just sitting there in grid, the car shut off. Started back up, ran perfect, shut off again, made it back here, shut off again. Let it sit, started it up, idled, then never shut off. So we got something's going on here. I remember we had this problem the last time we had the car out when we took the street racing channel guys out. I'm gonna try to diagnose it a little bit more and then take the car back out, see if it works. But it feels great. It's so nice to drive this car again. It's like the skid pad has no grip and it feels so fast compared to what I've been driving. Like it hooks and digs and like you feel like you're moving and the G-force is great. So I don't, it's a good day, good test day, but also I don't understand what the deal is with this. But we'll figure it out. It's just so hot out. You don't even want to stand near the car. The car itself is like, it's just baking. So after some diagnosing, I determined the problem with the dash was a ground wire. So we fixed that, and we're gonna see if the other issue is fixed. All right.
Let's go.
Let's roll. Realized midway through the run that I forgot to press record to data log this, and we need to data log it, so I'm trying to do it while drifting. All right, well, we did at least determine the dash problem. There's a little ground wires down here, right there, actually, you can see it. And that spot just didn't have the greatest connection, so took it off, cleaned it up, adjusted it. It was pulled kind of tight. I think part of it is the wires under here got disturbed when I was taking the cool shirt out last time the car was out, for people to have more legroom. So all seems well now with the dash, and we haven't had, knock on wood, the other problem. I did 4 or 5 laps without it doing anything. So we're gonna take it now on the oval because we are limited on fuel for this. We have about 3 gallons left in our fuel jug, or probably not even, probably 2 gallons, maybe less, left in our fuel jug here and a full tank. And if we're gonna run out and fuel cut, it's better to happen on the skid pad than the oval. So oval, then skid pad. intentionally playing it conservative on the bank, trying not to get too wild with the wall just yet. I was having trouble across the midsection and ending up not where I needed to be. So we decided to put cones on the front clip areas so that way I could kind of see where I'm going and see if I could get it, if I had some reference to go off of.
Have fun.
Thank you.
I'll see you over there.
Yes.
You let her rip, my friend.
I will. I'm going to try to get up near the wall, but not like crazy.
Yeah. We're testing. Have fun.
Yeah.
Oh, what is that?
All right.
All right. Have fun.
I will. Let's do it.
I'll see you. Remember, you're at 5.
So we decided to put the tire pressure dangerously low in the DB territory and just go try to whip this thing as hard as I can on the skid pad and see what happens. We need to push the limits here so we know what to expect during comp. So for the last run, I wanted to try to challenge myself and do the entire lap without ever touching the handbrake and just see what happens. Well, we got the vet back in the shop, and boy, this thing is a little bit battered, but that test day, it went well and bad, and it went both ways, you know. So the good aspect of it is the car is feeling better than ever. We made some small changes. I had to put new harnesses in it because we stole the harnesses that were in it for the Miata. For the toge event, because we needed in-date harnesses and mine were out of date, I switched to 2-inch belts for this because if I am ever going to have to wear Hans in a car, it'll be this car. So while I was doing that, something I've wanted to change for a while is the seat position. These seats are kind of designed for you to be pretty leaned back, but I always felt like I was too far leaned back. It's like if you ever driven your car around, if you lean the seat back and you're not used to it being leaned back, you don't feel as ready to drive the car. You kind of feel like you're in a lounging position. It sounds small and silly, but it makes a big difference. And I finally took the time to reset the seat, get it angled up a little bit more, a little more upright, and that made a big difference. I also tinkered a little bit with the front suspension. We changed the tire pressure, did some small stuff there, and the car was driving better than ever. Now on the oval, it was kind of status quo, you know. Any not goodness in the driving on the oval was me. But on the skid pad is where the car felt insane, because the Miata, one of the things I noticed when I went back to driving it, you know, this last couple months, was that what makes me drive that car so much better is the fact that I completely trust it on transitions. You know, I know how hard I can throw the car in transition and how fast I can make it transition without fear of it over-rotating. And that is critical for tandem, because there's times where you need to get it to transition really quick and dive back in on somebody's door. And if you don't trust that the car's not going to over-rotate, if you do that, it makes you hesitate, and it's a compound effect. So I wanted to play around with that, and this layout was really small and technical, but it was great for that. So I kind of tried every different way of going through that track and just chucking the car as hard as I could on transitions, and I even did a lap without touching the e-brake at all, not on the entry, nowhere, to see how the car would do and how I could slow it down other ways, you know, with angle and side bite and left foot brake and four-wheel sliding, and all of that worked great. You know, like I felt so in control of the car and what the car was doing, and so confident in it. And that is what we need going forward in a competition. So anyway, the driving aspect was great. The bad things is we got some problems. You know, first off, the car took a battering, man. It got thrashed. So I hit a front clip coming off the bank, tore up the wrap. It also knocked the bumper to get sucked up under the car, so it completely destroyed the front lip. It's broken in about, I don't know, 5-8 places. It even bent the mount here where the bumper mounts. You can see we got a much larger gap there. Our wastegates have moved a little bit and are melting. The hood, that's, you know, not from this. This flew off because I don't think we've ever done an oval lap without the hood, but it's still in one piece. We've opened our access hole quite a bit. You can see how hot it gets here from the tire, and we've rubbed the entire lip off of this quarter panel, and that's mainly from coming off the bank when the suspension squats. So this was a pretty small hole, and now after this event or test day, it's a very large hole. So there's that. The side skirts hanging off over here, and the fender mounts broken, so the fender's flopping around. So it took some damage, especially considering it was a test day. You know, you'd expect that level of damage from a comp if you went rounds, but not used to getting that much damage on a test day. But we learned a lot, and it was good. Now the other problem's on the mechanical side. We've been having that issue with the dash, which luckily we did sort that out. It was just that ground wire. The circuit that powers the dash is also the same circuit that tells the ECU to turn on. So I'm wondering if the two are related. There was something weird going on with the ground, which was then tripping out that, and then maybe that circuit shutting off for a second, which then kills the ignition, and then the car shuts off, because that didn't happen again. But that is something that we definitely don't want to happen again. We can't risk having that happen again. So we're gonna need to go through that side of the wiring in detail and make sure we don't have that problem arise again. But the other problem, like I said, we did have some problems, is in the cooling system department. This thing was not running at its coolest. Now, the cooling system on this car is designed for what we intended to use it for, which is competition. Basically, what that means is it's set up purely to cool at idle. Because in a drift comp, you generally, in practice, you do a run and then you have 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes before the next run, where you're just sitting there idling. Battle, you gotta do 2 back-to-back runs. You go up, you do your run, you have maybe a minute between runs. So you basically need to be able to do 2 back-to-back runs from reasonably cooled off, because as you get deeper into the rounds, you have less and less time to cool the car off. So, you know, you're gonna be starting at a higher temperature. So that's what I noticed, is once we had the car hot, it would just climb in temp pretty quickly. We could make it work, but I don't like being held ransom by my car's cooling system and having to wait to go out again because the car needs to cool down. I don't like doing that. So we're gonna try to address that. First things first, I would imagine the radiator is pretty clogged with rubber. So we need to clean that out, but then we need to make a solution to get this thing better consistent airflow. Cleaning the rubber out of the radiator is kind of on our to-do list every time we service the car before a major event, but you can only get to so much of it, and it's a service that we haven't really done in a while because all the events have been kind of last minute, so I imagine there's a lot of rubber buildup in here. Well, that's how much rubber was just in the radiator. I didn't blow off any other area because I wanted to see how much was in the radiator. That was a lot. Before we dug any further into our radiator cooling system saga, I wanted to go ahead and clean the rest of the rubber off of here. At a car at this level, it collects rubber very, very quickly, and it's not good to keep that rubber on there. One, it's just dirty and grimy, but two, that rubber can catch fire. You see this happen with cars that have a lot of rubber buildup, and you can have an insane amount of rubber buildup in just 1 or 2 events. This is literally about an event's worth of rubber. Well, turns out there was quite a bit of rubber in there. After seeing how much rubber came out of the radiator, I was really curious to see if or how much was still in there, so I decided to try to pull the radiator at least partially off and inspect under there, just to get an idea. Before we do that, though, I do want to see what our water level is like. Oh, I mean, that probably wasn't helping anything. Okay, well, the swirl pot was full of water. Expansion tank wasn't. After moving the radiator around with the lines connected, I realized the only way we were really going to be able to get access at this and see how much rubber was still in there was to disconnect the lines, drain the system, and pull the radiator out. So that's why I decided to check it before we did that so we could see what our coolant level was like and if that was contributing to our problem, which it most definitely was. Our coolant was a little bit low. That's the thing with really any car, but especially a race car. You got to check all these fluids before every event, and it's something I admittedly have slacked on because this car has not had much of a problem with losing coolant, but it does happen. To every car I've ever had that I've driven hard, you're going to lose some, so you got to check it. I'm pretty sure this is the first time this radiator's been out since the car was built. Josue's here. Do you think we haven't ever taken it out, have we?
I think we did clean it one time.
Oh, we took it out?
I don't know if we took it out. I don't think we took it out.
I don't think we ever took it out. I can't remember ever draining the water out of this thing. But as you can see, this was definitely not doing us any favors. This is after blowing it out. We've still got a ton of rubber stuck in here. It is caked with rubber. So it was pretty low on water. So that probably wasn't helping our cause. And what I want to do is build some sort of shroud. Now I have kind of a long-term plan of maybe completely changing this, but it requires a new back window, a bunch of tin work, it's a lot. So for now I want to try this first. I want to basically build a shroud that blocks the sides and the front to try to prevent as much rubber from getting in there. We'll still get some, but not get as much in there, so it takes a little longer before it gets clogged up. But first things first, we gotta get this radiator clean.
Oh, I told you it was gonna get gross.
You YouTubers don't take advice. And I'm like... So we weren't quite sure how to get the rest of this rubber out because obviously using the air hose on the backside wasn't enough, so we tried a combination of wire brushing it to break it loose and the air hose, and then I started working on the idea of just picking it all out, which would take an absolute eternity, so that wasn't going to work. But then blowing it from the front side actually seemed like it was doing the trick to get this stubborn rubber out because it's able to break it up right next to it, and then the backside's open to just blow it right out of there. All right, that's another dustpan full. It's a lot of rubber to be in your radiator. We've definitely blown it out before, but never by pulling it out of the car and really deep cleaning it like we're doing now. So this might make a big difference. In order to start building the shroud and measuring and doing all of that, we needed to get the radiator mocked back up in place and just see what everything was looking like. And my idea was one of those ideas that I had never really looked at the seriousness of executing, and it seems like a simple idea. It would just be one piece bent, cut to angle, and then mount it either to the frame rails or to the radiator. The problem is the opening for the radiator is wider than the frame rails, so we've got to do some rethinking, which is why we installed the radiator back in here. But now that it's back in, we can't help ourselves. We want to see how this thing would cool if it wasn't completely clogged up with rubber. I mean, who knows how much of an effect that had been having. So we decided to go ahead and fill and bleed the cooling system, which is quite tricky on a rear-mounted radiator setup because you've got a lot of lines, we've got a swirl pot, we've got an expansion tank, and I do remember this being really challenging the first time we did it and very hard to tell if the pump was primed and if you were getting coolant flow. And as we had the pump on and we were trying to bleed out the high spots, I just couldn't feel any flow at the swirl pot. So I moved up to the front to break a line loose, and it had water, so It's kind of hard to tell. There's no real clear definitive answer, but when we had the hood off, Josue couldn't help himself but try to start fixing the bumper damage I did. We did a little bit more than tear up the lip and bend the mount. I mean, the whole bumper itself got compromised, and that's not going to be as easy of a fix as we thought. But it's time to wrap this cooling system up and just test fire it and see how it works now. So I think we're going to hold off on making any drastic changes to this setup until we test it with an unclogged radiator. So that way, if we build that block-off shroud, we'll know if it drastically decreases performance and gets hotter. Also, I'd rather hold off until we can put the time in to flip the flow, to draw air from the top, and then do some nice duct work from the back window. It'd be a lot more work, but long term, it would be the better solution for us to get good, clean airflow.
Good plan. We need a baseline.
Yeah, I can't bring myself to make a big change without knowing what it does fixed, you know, in correct operating condition.
Right. It's almost like a Band-Aid. So
Yeah.
we're already planning on doing more work.
Right. It's not raining too bad now. We could push it outside, fire it up, and make sure the system's bled correctly. It's not that easy to push. Temps rising quick, so it's definitely not bled. I was hoping since we had the expansion tank this time, this wouldn't be a problem, but it's time to break out every trick in the book when it comes to filling and purging air out of a cooling system. We jacked the back up, and when that didn't work, it's time to unbolt the radiator and try to get this pump to finally prime and flow through the system. All right, well, we had to resort to our memory bank of diagnostics, but I remembered we had this problem when we first put the car together. Because we unbolted the radiator, we lifted it, and then finally you heard it suck up the water. Now we're back to how it was before, losing about a degree a second, or every 2 seconds. Now we're back to fan off temp. Boom. That's how it should be. Nice. Been wanting to use this thermal camera on a car for a while. I used it so much on the boat. But had to do it in the rain, but she's back in business. And I definitely feels like it's flowing, like way more air is coming out. They were definitely choking before. I think even when I put these fans on, I hadn't cleaned the radiator out. You know what I mean? Yeah. This is like the first time we're gonna get to see how it cools with these fans with a clean radiator.
True.
Yeah. So it could be, for all we know, way better. I mean, it cooled super fast from fan on temp, so I'm happy with that. That makes me feel better. I couldn't sleep at night with how this thing was heating up. All right, well, with that done, the last thing to tackle in the short term is rebuilding this engine harness. But I've got to finish ordering some more parts and pieces and components for it. This is something I intended on tackling a long time ago. We literally just used the off-the-shelf harness to save time because we were trying to get this car done in time to make it to, you know, the last couple of rounds of Clutch Kickers Season 3. So off-the-shelf harness saved, you know, about a week of building a custom mil-spec engine harness like we did for the rest of the chassis here. But it's something I wanted to do, A, for reliability, and B, just because I'll enjoy it. And especially now that we're having maybe some wiring gremlins, building a whole new harness will eliminate any potential issues with our current harness. So something I really want to get done ASAP. And the reason why we're doing all this now is because not only do we have a few comps coming up that we've been planning on all year, but more so than that, if you didn't hear the news, Clutch Kickers is coming back. If you're not familiar, it's a series that we competed in with the LS Miata for years, and you know, in this car, we were always kind of outcarred, and we upgraded it and upgraded it, but it got to a point where we couldn't upgrade it anymore. So we built this car, and we hustled and got it done as quick as we could to make it to the last couple rounds of the season. And we did make it out to round 4. And we had, honestly, a really good showing, all things considered. It was my 3rd time driving the car. First comp, we made it to the top 8. We went 2 more times with my buddy Eric Conkling. He ended up moving on. We had contact, and I was so happy with that result. And I was like, hey, cool, this is great. Car worked, made it in one piece. Round 5, we'll really, you know, try to go for it, hopefully. But then it got canceled. Round 5 never happened, and the series went down, and it was rough. I mean, we built this car for drift comps in general, but primarily for clutch kickers, and then it went under after doing 1 round. So the fact that it's finally coming back, it's going to be at a similar track to where the OG clutch kickers track in Emerald Coast. It's going to be a mid-pond, tight technical track, good equalizer between cars like that and cars like the Miata. I'm hoping that not only will it come back, but we can collectively get it back to its prime. So I'm really excited for that, and I want to make sure that the car is dialed and ready to go when that first event pops up, which should hopefully be very soon, and that I am dialed in the car and ready to, you know, drive it at 100%, because I'm going to have to, because there's always shredders at clutch kickers, and I don't think V2 will be any different. So I'm excited for that. I just really want to drive the car some more. You know, again, we have some comps coming up. It's just, they've been kind of far and few between this year, and you know, the ones that I really like to drive as far as the type of event they are and all that are really far, and then the closer ones I might not want to drive as much. Just there hasn't been a ton of options. But that being said, we should be hopefully back into full swing competing in this thing here soon. So I'm excited for that. I can't wait. A few more things to do, but I mean, at least as it sits right now, we could take it to a comp tomorrow and have good confidence that it's going to get us through without any fuss. So that being said, I'm going to go ahead and end it here. Let me know what you guys think of the Vette and its current state. It's driving. Ideas for the radiator revamp. It'd be cool to get that done before we get full swing back into comps as well. And any other suggestions you have, let me know in the comments down below. But for now, that is it. So thank you guys for watching. Thanks for subscribing. I appreciate everything you all do. And let me know if you're excited to see some more competitions coming up in the future. I know we've been slacking this year. So yeah, anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.